Welcome to the Standing for Truth YouTube channel, where we make the Bible come alive. Make sure to follow us for the best evidence refuting evolution and confirming biblical creation.
All right, welcome to Standing for Truth. My name is Donny, and in this program, we are going to be commenting on comments. The comments that come in from the critics really are a gift to creation science and prove even further, why it truly is a great time to be a biblical creationist. We're also going to debunk Erika from the Gutsick Gibbon YouTube channel on the Y chromosome. I should say continue debunking Erika on the Y chromosome, but mainly issuing several challenges and several questions that Erika will need to engage and answer sufficiently if she really wants to answer the Y chromosome dissimilarity challenge. And so we have quite a bit to get through. Therefore, let's get right into it. It's been a busy day. I just recently finished a podcast with Gavin Cox from Answers in Genesis UK. It was an excellent program. He gave a fantastic presentation on a fascinating topic, Adam, Eve in ancient Egypt. And the evidence blew my mind. I knew it blew the minds of a lot of you in the audience. And it just further demonstrates how in the world of biblical creation, we have multiple lines of evidence from all different kinds of fields that are corroborating on a single conclusion, that conclusion being what? That the biblical model of ancestry is the best explanation for our origins and accounts best for all the data points and pieces of evidence that we have in all these different wide-ranging fields. Okay, I'm excited for this. So let's get right into it. I'm going to make sure that I am screen shared with audio, because I want to kickstart this program with Erika's. So here's the video that I put out. Has Gutsick Gibbon answered this challenge? The Y chromosome evidence evolutionists can't explain. And I covered in that video, I went through the various arguments. I covered this visual in great detail that basically point us the reality that when you consider overall gene content, size differences in architecture, the human Y, clearly you can see it on the left here, is less than 30% the same as the chimpanzee Y. And again, when you consider the entirety of the Y chromosome, the human Y is more similar to the gorilla Y than either is to the chimpanzee Y, which is a break in the so-called nested hierarchy within the great ape family. And going back probably somewhere between 5 and 6 years ago, when Erika and I first had our debate, we had a series of very fun debates back in the day on Modern Day Debate. It was a debate trilogy. The first debate was on human evolution. And one of my primary arguments in the discussion was the Y chromosome. Now, much has changed in 5 or 6 years in terms of the arguments that I would use, my approach, my style. But the Y chromosome has always been a really fascinating point of discussion. As I like to point out, we don't want to spend too much time on agnostic pieces of evidence, those kinds of evidence that both models or a variety of models can account for. We want to focus on discriminating evidence. Anyways, I covered all that in the previous video. Point is, we've been going back and forth on the Y chromosome for a while. Just a year or two ago, a new paper came out, that the Makova paper, I believe it is 2024, that gave the most sophisticated Y chromosome sequencing data available for humans and the great apes. Erika put out a video where she felt that the challenge, the Y chromosome dissimilarity challenge, was finally answered in a sophisticated manner sufficiently. And so I responded to that video that she put out in 2 parts. And then as I was moving into my 3rd part over a year ago, Erika joined one of our open mics. We did an open mic debate challenge series. Show us the evidence for evolution, refute the evidence for biblical creation or separate ancestry. And that was a fun, roughly 1.5 to 2 years, where it was nearly every other week we were doing an open mic debate challenge. Anybody was welcome to join as long as they were somewhat professional. Sometimes those debates could get heated, of course. Passion is expected on such an important, massive topic like this, origins. Anyways, long story short, she joined one of them. And so we had an informal debate for a couple hours. I love those open mic debates, because we would go for 5 to 6 hours, and it gave the opportunity for many impromptu debates. Mr. Anderson joined a bunch of times, at least twice from what I can remember. Dr. Dan Stern Cardinal, Grayson Hawk joined many times. Snake was right. Mark Reed. I mean, you name it. Most of the evolutionists that debate in the debate community. So we got a lot of good discussions and debates during that series. So we debated it for 2 hours. And then I thought to myself, well, I put out 2 responses to her video. Then we debated it for 2 hours. I uploaded it. She uploaded it. And so I didn't feel the need to respond any further to her video. I felt like 2 responses in a debate was more than enough to give the audience the material that is required or necessary to watch, to consume, to digest, and then to decide for themselves, has the Y chromosome dissimilarity challenge been addressed? You eventually get to the point where you got to leave it up to the audience, because the critic or my interlocutor is not really going to tap out. Okay. So it's up to the audience to decide for themselves. But it's become even more clear now, as we further engage this point, that the Y chromosome dissimilarity challenge has not been adequately answered. I've done several of my own debates, of course, since then. We engaged in one with Conspiracy Cats for 4.5 hours. That was a debate seminar in the summer. We just did one with Planet Peterson and PhD Tony on Modern Day Debate. We have another one coming up. And I continue to use this argument because it has not been answered. Erika, in her latest video, which I put out a commentary video, or reaction video, in the channel members section. So for channel members and then patrons, do check it out. I pointed out that Gutsick Gibbon, she does have a good sense of humor at times, and she made me laugh a couple times during this. And so I gave her some positive feedback, but also some criticism in terms of the arguments. And then I put out a video for the public to see, publicly available, where I engaged the Y chromosome issue because she had said that I misrepresented it, which I think it is an assertion. I think she misrepresented how I present the Y chromosome because I definitely don't misrepresent it. Anyways, so feel free to check out that video to get all the context and information where I cover all these slides and the necessary information to fully understand what's even being debated here. I went over these refuting evolutionist rescue devices, and now I have several more slides that I want to cover. But before I do, I want to play some of her video that I have up here. And I also want to point people to the comment section of this video. It's an epic comment section. Frello fails again. Dr. Stefan Frello left a comment where he attempted to respond. Frello is really good at repeating already debunked talking points. And so it's interesting because Stefan Frello was challenged to participate as the evolutionist in this summer's debate seminar. The point is, he was making the excuse because we debated 5 years ago on Modern Day Debate, and he complained, you know, I was talking fast and I was holding his feet to the fire, and he basically conceded that debate. And so he hasn't debated since. So we said, Matt and I said, well, you know what? Come on the channel. We'll do a debate seminar. We'll go for 4.5, 5 hours. We'll give you uninterrupted sections, 50-minute, almost an hour opening statement to make your case, bring your best arguments that you're always bringing up on Facebook and text. He's a Facebook warrior. I mean, who's got time to spend their entire day on Facebook responding in text form that barely anyone's going to see anyways, unless you're on Facebook? And the debate gets so technical too that people are going to be reading and they're going to get lost. We got to do a debate publicly in video format, face-to-face, digitally. Okay. And anyways, so long rebuttals, 25 minutes, second rebuttals, more than enough opportunity for him to be able to sit back, relax, make his arguments, put forth his criticisms and challenges. He turned it down. That's fine. Debate's not for everybody. Okay. But conspiracy cats agreed. And so that's good. We had a great debate seminar. But that hasn't stopped Stefan Frello from repeating the same talking points. I put out several responses to Stefan Frello, and I also showed exactly why his arguments focusing on the chimp bonobo differences do not work. I asked him these questions: how those massive architectural changes occurred mechanistically. I asked these to Gutsick Gibbon, when they occurred within the proposed 6 million year time frame. Answer me this, Erika, evolutionist. Show me the reconstructed ancestral genetic sequence of the supposed ancestor. You got humans and chimps that go back to this ancestor roughly 6 or 7 million years ago. After that split, apparently, is where all these changes, these duplications, chromosomal rearrangements, gene deletions, so on and so forth, and the addition of genes in some cases, as we're going to see. Show me the ancestral sequence so we can determine what was lost, what was gained, rather than this just being a story. Because what they do, and all Erika did in her video was showed in the 2024 paper, this is all Stefan Frello demonstrated as well, is, well, here's these possible mechanisms. And so because these mechanisms are real, we can apply them to the differences between human and chimpanzee Y chromosomes, and maybe these are what occurred to explain the differences. No, just invoking mechanisms isn't the same as demonstrating that those mechanisms were enough or even took place in the first place to account for all these differences. Okay. And so I pointed all that out to Stefan Frello. It didn't go too well for him, but he did attempt and prove my point. He did attempt to answer the questions, and it was nothing but a bunch of storytelling. And so what I said was, what you've provided is a list. Again, this is all Erika has done. This is all the critics have ever done. Dr. Dan Stern, Cardinal, you name it. What you've provided is a list of hypothetical. This is evolutionary philosophy, hypothetical genomic events, deletions, duplications, inversions. You know, a lot of these genetic mutations occurring because of sperm competition. Okay. Unusual mating habits in the chimpanzee or pan lineages. But you have not provided, notice this is what Erika needs to provide: a quantified rate at which these events occur, a timeline showing they fit within the 6 to 7 million years. This is actually doing the work. The work hasn't been done. Your main papers associated with this issue, like the Hughes paper, the 2024 Makova paper, if I'm saying that right, which I've dug into quite extensively, they don't provide an reconstructed ancestral sequence. So this is all guessing. It's all a guessing game. A population genetic model showing fertility is maintained, or an ancestral, this is the big point, or an ancestral Y chromosome reconstruction validating which lineage gained or lost what. Andrew Cumming, he commented, nothing but a bunch of storytelling. So I responded to him in great detail as well. And you can check that out here. Notice this. Listing mechanisms. So Andrew Cumming was guilty of the exact same thing. He lists mechanisms, recombination, slippage, sperm competition, etc. It's not the same as quantifying them. Makova does not, and neither does Erika. Neither does Dr. Stefan Frello. Neither does Dr. Dancer and Cardinal. None of these guardians of common descent, these apologists of ape-to-man evolution, have what? Reconstructed the ancestral Y sequence. Show which lineage lost which amplicons, a genetic sequence in the Y chromosome, or the palindromes. Model the duplication/deletion rates required. Explain the 2 times size difference. The fact that the human Y and the gorilla Ys are 2 times the size as the chimpanzee Y. Okay. Or solve why only 14 to 27% of the human Y aligns with the ape Ys. And so you guys can go look at all these comments in detail and see if the critics there were successful. And now I want to start playing Erika's video as we move into the slides, which are going to have a list of questions and challenges that need to be answered. Here we go.
Figure 1 is the crown jewel, right? We have over here on the far left a phylogeny, and then figure 1b, we have a heat map for pairwise comparisons on alignability, not sequence identity, but alignability of the X chromosome here and the Y chromosome. As expected, the
So as we move through oh, look at that, Pokemon. So as we move through the ads, okay, that was quick. It's the differences that make all the difference. So as I pointed out on the previous show and in many other programs and debates, it's the differences that make all the difference. Creationists can explain similarities. Creationists can also explain dissimilarities or differences, especially massive differences, which help answer the question of ancestry. Where are those boundaries within kinds? Okay. And Erika here is looking at the X chromosomes, which are highly similar, and that's okay. Evolutionists really struggle with the differences. And that's why I like to say, again, the differences make all the difference. And if evolutionists can't explain massive differences, well, then those massive differences act as differentiating or discriminating evidence in the ongoing creation versus evolution debate, because then the creation model can best account for those differences, whereas the evolutionary model requires rescue devices, but very far-fetched, non-empirical rescue devices.
matches pretty much with the rest of the nuclear genome. You're looking at the bottom organism compared to, like, the organism on the x-axis here compared to the one on the y. So for instance, the percent of the human that can align to the chimpanzee is, as highlighted by my cursor here, 97.6% on the X chromosome. The percent of the Simang Y that can align to the human Y here is 84.1% on the X chromosome. It's pretty conserved, which is why most of these are pretty similar. And everybody is going to be roughly as similar to the Simang as everybody else as far as the great apes go versus just a regular lesser ape here in the Simang. So creationists argued for a long time that the Y chromosome was what separated the humankind from the ape kinds.
I want to be clear. I don't think I've ever, going back 5 or 6 years since I've been debating this issue, I've had over 100 formal debates. I've had a couple hundred, at least, informal debates in light of all the open mic challenges we've done. And I've gone on other channels for similar kinds of events. So hundreds of exchanges with evolutionists. Okay, many of which with the same evolutionists. I mean, Erika and I have engaged the topic of ancestry 5 or 6 times, I think. Anyways, so I've never said, as far as I remember, that all the great apes are related and go back to a single kind. The model that I've held to, our research project, has always started from the assumption that you have humans as their own created kind. And then you have within the great apes several created kinds. You have the pan kind, chimpanzees and bonobos going back to their own arc ancestor roughly 45 million years ago, so, or 4,500 years ago. So they are related. Your gorilla kind and then your orangutan kind. So yeah, those two species of orangutans can go back to their own created kind. So I think it's a straw man argument. Maybe some creationists have and continue to hold to one kind in the great ape family. That's going to be an issue because now creationists are going to have to explain the Y chromosome differences occurring 4,500 years since the flood. That's some pretty rapid evolutionary change right there, a rapid degradation, I guess one could say. So at least a few kinds within the great apes, and then humans as their own kind. So actually, a lot of what Erika is about to say, and I made this clear in our informal debate on the issue, a lot of what Erika is about to say is fully consistent in confirmation with the model of ancestry that I specifically hold to. It would be problematic, though, to creationists who want to say that gorillas and chimps, let's say, are the same created kind. No, I think this data refutes that.
You had the human, and then you had the ape with regard to this Y chromosome, that being maybe one of the separating factors. This figure blows that idea out of the water, right? Because all of the great ape Ys are extremely different from one another.
Exactly. All of your great ape Ys are extremely different from each other, but the ones that we would say belong to the same created kind are close enough where we could actually explain those differences, and those differences largely due to genetic loss, genetic degeneration since the flood. Like chimps and bonobos, similar enough. We're going to get into that soon. And then also the orangutans, similar enough as well. But then once you look at humans and chimps, very dissimilar. Humans and gorillas are pretty close, but obviously if humans and chimps aren't related, then humans and gorillas aren't related either. So there's independent ancestries here is the point.
Directly in line with the evolutionary prediction. And this is particularly
I don't see how this is directly in line with the evolutionary prediction. Firstly, and I've asked this many times and asked in the previous video, where did evolutionists predict that before we got the Y sequencing data for humans in the great apes, where did they ever predict that we would find such immense dissimilarities? Once they found it, they were shocked, right? They're highly divergent, extraordinarily divergent. Then the rescue devices come, maybe these mechanisms, but the Hughes paper in 2010 actually admits right in the paper that there's no way that they can reconstruct at that time an ancestral sequence. And so now they're just guessing. Maybe in this lineage, there were some losses. Maybe in this lineage, there were some duplications. I mean, okay, I appreciate the storytelling, the evolutionary philosophy, but that is not empirical. So where was this predicted before the data came out?
the case with any given great ape compared to the bonobo and chimpanzee, the panins, who are the ones who are undergoing that rapid evolution due to sperm competition. So here's the human right down here. The human alignability to the chimpanzee and the bonobo is like roughly 26%. The human alignability to the gorilla, less than that at 25, followed by the Bornean orangutan, the Sumatran orangutan, and lastly, the Saimang. The gorilla's alignability is significantly lower than the human, again, in line with evolutionary predictions.
It's not in line with evolutionary predictions. You have the gorilla Y and the human Y more similar to each other than the gorilla and human Ys are to the chimpanzee Y. And that's when you consider everything. They're the ones that want to assume all DNA differences are the result of mutations over time. They're the ones that want to assume that, well, there was a common ancestor between humans and chimps. And during that split in those independent lineages, all these different mutations, all these different changes happened and happened in a way where now in the Y chromosome, when you consider everything, humans and gorillas are more, there's so many assumptions built into that. It's mind-boggling and flabbergasting that they can't see that. I mean, they might as well just lay out a 10-page story. Well, we're assuming there is a common ancestor roughly 6 to 7 million years ago. We don't have the ancestral sequence. We haven't constructed it yet. We don't have any sophisticated data to go by. But hey, maybe in this lineage, these changes happened. Maybe in this lineage, these changes happened. And they should write all that out and then print it off. And then you know what? They can stick it in the myth section at the library, or just crumple it up and throw it in the trash, because it ain't science. That is for sure. They can talk as confidently as they want. They can make as many assertions as they want. They can story tell all day for I care. But this is not empirical science. This is not an answer to the Y chromosome dissimilarity challenge.
With the humans being the sister group to the panins, the hominids being the sister group to the panins. The gorilla alignability to the bonobo and chimp is like roughly 20%, followed by 23 to the human, 19 for the Bornean.
Yeah, because the gorillas aren't related to chimpanzees, humans or bonobos.
and Sumatran orangutan approximately, and 12 even lower for
And they're not related to orangutans either. This is separate kinds all within here. I mean, thank you.
the Sinang. I'm going to make this as clear as I possibly can.
Now, I will say, though, I wish evolutionists would be as detailed. I wish more evolutionists would be as detailed and diligent as Erika is. So credit where credit is due. She does work hard at interacting with these issues. Prime example is Creaky Blinder just put out a response to our 3.5 to 4 hour highly comprehensive response to him, Ben Kissling, Sam, and myself. And he dodged almost everything. He dodged a whole section at the end where I went through several slides and then went through Dr. Russell Humphrey's responses to criticisms and objections to the helium and zircon crystals. And Creaky Blinder, deceiving his audience, I guess, gaslighting his audience, he skipped all of that and basically said, I don't care if it's coming from a creationist source, if it's coming from a creationist article, I don't care. And he ended his video. There's nothing to go. He didn't even attempt to address our rebuttals. And I'm thinking to myself, is Creaky Blinder even worth responding to at this point? So more evolutionists need to put in the work, at least like Erika does, where she's going through the paper, she's going through the data, she's doing her best to address the challenge, which is why once I present the questions that I have for her, I do have faith that she'll at least attempt to answer them, to put in the work to answer them and move this debate forward in a meaningful fashion.
Andy, if you want to say the fact that only a third of the human Y chromosome can align to the chimpanzee means that humans and chimps can't be a part of the same kind, then gorillas and chimpanzees can't be a part.
Yes. Been saying that for years. Gorillas and chimps are not the same kind. We have separate ancestries within the great apes.
Of the same kind. And Bornean and Sumatran orangutans and...
But it is, I mean, again, credit where credit is due. She says it confidently. She asserts it. Well, if you're saying that humans and chimps, based on the differences in the Y chromosome, can't be related, well, then guess what, guys? All rhetorical, right? That means chimps and gorillas can't be related. And I'm like, yes, that's what we've been saying. Separate created kinds, answering the boundaries question.
Chimpanzees, the canins, and bonobos cannot be a part of the same kind, right? You're up a creek on this one. The Y chromosome cannot distinguish between a human kind and an ape kind. That argument...
Yes, it can, because again, if humans and chimps, which the Y chromosome rules this out, if humans and chimps aren't related through common ancestry, but evolutionists say that you got humans, chimps, and gorillas, but humans and gorillas sharing a more distant common ancestor. Okay, I mean, you can see humans, chimpanzees, and bonobos, right? All sharing a common ancestor roughly 7 million years ago. Bring in the gorillas, roughly 9 million years ago. Your orangutan species, 17 million years ago. So yeah, if you refute the idea that humans and chimps are related, and then your gorilla Y suggests that they're not related to the chimp, okay, but they're closer to the human, who's going to say humans and gorillas are related, but then humans and chimps aren't? Doesn't make any sense. According to the evolutionary model, gorillas are further out than chimpanzees and humans in terms of common descent. Okay. And same thing with orangutan. So yes, right here is created. This is exactly what we would expect in the biblical model of ancestry. So Erika really needs to engage this data.
Alderson.
And so as we're getting through this ad, again, I want to highly recommend, and I'll have them all linked. I'll have them all linked in the description box of this video. I put out several articles, short articles for people on this issue, as well as at least one recent video. Okay, here we go.
Because evolutionary theory made a very specific prediction several papers ago, which is that if sperm competition is to blame for why canins are so divergent from the rest of the apes, and specifically the hominins, then what we should expect is that drive.
And what you still need is a sophisticated mathematical model. We need to see the reconstructed ancestral gene sequence. We need to see which lineage is gained, which lineage is lost, what explains the loss of most of that heterochromatin, that heterochromatic arm in the pan lineage. We need to explain the palindrome sequences, the ampliconic sequences. I mean, just saying sperm competition and then seeing that chimps are a lot different than the other great apes, that's not an answer to the Y chromosome dissimilarity challenge. All you're doing is basically giving these mechanisms, but not actually applying them and quantifying them. Okay. And this is what we still need the evolutionists to do.
That pressure should continue to act within the panens, and it should lead to them being much more divergent than other pairs of closely related apes. And we have.
And remember, this is all retrofitting. So this data came in suggesting that the Y chromosomes in the great apes and humans are highly divergent, extraordinarily different. So now they're retrofitting. Well, we see that the chimpanzee Y is just so different to the gorilla and the orangutan and human Y. So maybe that's the odd man out, and maybe because of sperm competition. And as a result, faster rates of substitution or gene conversion, large deletions. Okay, we get it. You can storytell. You can invoke your evolutionary philosophy all day, but we need a sophisticated mathematical model. We need to see rates of fixation. We need to see some population genetics on this. We need to, the evolutionary community really needs to put in the work, because so far, none of these papers have actually reconstructed an ancestral sequence for the so-called common ancestor between humans and chimps.
A wonderful example of that on display here, an evolutionary prediction continuing to be supported by this data.
Not
because
an
when we look at the
evolutionary
chimpanzee and the bonobo here, the chimpanzee is 65.
It's actually quite the opposite. This is a major challenge. See, notice how everything's just an evolutionary prediction to them. I mean, the fact that the sky is blue is probably an evolutionary prediction. You know, again, I mean, you see these guys sometimes so unsophisticated, like Planet Peterson in our debate. Well, I mean, any degree of similarity is just refutation of separate ancestry and special creation. I mean, if there's a degree of similarity, then there's relationship. No, similarity does not equate relationship. He was so reluctant to just say that he's related to a banana plant. He just said, well, they share 50% DNA. So yeah, so you're going to extrapolate that to mean that they're related through common ancestry. That's when you go from the science, the empirical scientific data, to your fairy tale, to your evolutionary philosophy. The extrapolation is actually the fallacy, and you're extrapolating it into your imagination land, because evolutionists hope, dream, and imagine that they're related to a banana plant because we share DNA with banana plants.
0.3% alignable to the bonobo. These are species that are as similar to one another as we are to Neanderthals. That's insane. And slightly less than that when it comes to the bonobo being aligned to the chimpanzee at 59.6%. These guys are so similar to one another in the nuclear genome, and yet their Ys are incredibly divergent. Okay, that is directly in line with this idea that sperm competition is driving it, that sexual selection within the panens is causing their Y.
Okay, so chimps, bonobos, a little different as well. But what are the differences? What are the specific types of differences? Is it apples to apples comparison when you're looking at chimps to humans? Can we as creationists explain the differences in 4,500 years if chimps and bonobos go back to a common arc ancestor? Well, let's see. Let's go through some of this data and present some of the questions that Erika is going to have to answer. Okay, so firstly, we have different sequences, because someone like Erika might be tempted, I know Stefan Frello attempted it and failed, to say, well, if you're going to invoke largely gene deletions and gene loss to explain bonobo and chimp differences in the young Earth creation model, well, humans and chimps, those differences can basically be explained due to losses. Well, firstly, bonobos and chimpanzees both have that heterochromatic arm. Don't have the heterochromatic arm. Humans do. So there's a massive change right there. And you could just say, well, it was all lost. Okay, show us when, show us why, show us how. Again, show us the ancestral sequence as well that's reconstructed. So palindromes, those are large inverted DNA repeats that read the same forward and backward. They form mirror image arms that constantly copy correct each other through gene conversion. On the Y chromosome, palindromes protect essential sperm genes, but they also make the Y extremely vulnerable to large deletions and rearrangements. Here's the key point. Humans and chimps have entirely different palindrome families, meaning they cannot be inherited from a common ancestor. So we need to see the ancestral sequence, and then we need to see which lineages gained or lost palindrome genes and families. That all needs to be reconstructed, presented in a sophisticated mathematical model, showing rates of mutation, giving us fixation events. There's just so much that hasn't been answered. Amplicons, highly repeated, large DNA blocks on the Y chromosome that often contain multiple copies of fertility-related genes. These regions can expand, contract, duplicate, or rearrange, making them hotspots for structural change. Okay, so let's say changes took place in those lineages after the split, roughly 6 to 7 million years ago. Let's see the modeling for it. Don't just say they happened. Show us the model. Key point. Human and chimp ampliconic regions are not the same system. They differ in size, gene family, structure, and copy number. Can you really say, in light of all these differences, that it's only gene loss? Okay, for the most part, we can accommodate humans or bonobos and chimps going back to a common ancestor 4,500 years ago. Okay, but once you bring in the humans, well, now you need not only gene loss, but the addition of genes. It's much easier to break a gene, to lose genes, than to gain. Okay, this is where the modeling comes into play if the evolutionist still wants to say ape-to-man evolution is scientific. The core scientific failures of the critics. This is what we've seen from Dr. Stefan Frello in the comment section, Gutsick Gibbon in her video and in debates, Andrew Cumming. No ancestral why. I was tempted to say Dr. Dan Stern-Cardinal. We did engage it, but he hasn't really engaged this in any real detail. Maybe he just assumes Gutsick Gibbon has solved the issue. Well, she hasn't. Okay, Dr. Joel Duff, I haven't seen him engage really any of the differentiating points. So he's failing too. No ancestral Y chromosome reconstruction. Evolutionists cannot claim gain or loss without knowing the ancestral state. Here's what this means. Evolutionists, they assume humans and chimps, that chimps are our closest cousin on the phylogenetic tree of life. We supposedly go back to a common ancestor 6 to 7 million years ago. Okay, so that means there's a common ancestor, hypothetical. They don't know what that common ancestor is or who that common ancestor is, that population. That means that common ancestor would have a genetic sequence, okay? But we don't have an ancestral Y chromosome reconstruction of that. Evolutionists are going to have to build that somehow. And then we can maybe model and see, well, what was gained, what was lost? Which lineage gained what? Which lineage lost what? Storytelling does not equal reconstruction. Right from the Hughes et al. Paper in 2020 or 2010. The ancestral state cannot be determined. Erika has not provided this, not in her video here, not in any follow-up responses. No rate-based population genetic model. Not one critic has produced a model showing required duplication / deletion rates. Just saying, well, this is a confirmed prediction because sperm competition and the mating habits in chimpanzees are going to put them the odd man out. They're going to change drastically. The other apes, including humans, according to them, they're going to change just a little bit. And then you're going to get exactly what we see in terms of Y chromosome, the Y chromosome comparisons in humans and the great apes. Okay. Yeah, it's nice to just say that and invoke that story, but now we need to see the rates, required duplication / deletion rates, required recombination frequencies, timeline feasibility within 6 to 7 million years, population fertility survival. On the recombination issue, for the most part, the Y chromosome lacks recombination. And so Planet Peterson tried to invoke, well, maybe the lack of recombination can explain why it's so different, the Y chromosomes. Okay, where's your model? And then I asked a simple question about the heterochromatin. And well, I don't know. I haven't looked into that. Okay, well, put in the work. Mechanisms without quantification are not explanations. Structural differences are too large. Evolutionists cannot explain the massive size differences. Okay, entirely different palindromic families, human-specific ampliconic architectures. Screenshot these for any serious evolutionist that thinks they can still save the day for evolution that's been absolutely dismantled by this data. Screen share these, answer these questions, address them point by point. Loss of the heterochromatic arm in pan. Only 14 to 27% alignability, Makova 2024. We've seen that as Erika was going over. These are architecture level differences, not simply copy number tweaks. Evolutionists, this is what we see over and over and over again. This is all they ever do. This is all Erika did in this video. Evolutionists confuse mechanisms with demonstrations. Well, gene deletions, gene duplications, substitutions, gene conversion. Okay, demonstrate that those took place in the lineages after the split. Show us how many of those had to take place, when they took place, why they took place. I guess they're going to say, well, sperm competition, mating habits within chimpanzees. Okay. Now model it. Makova et al. Certainly didn't. Makova et al. Mentioned processes that exist, but do not what? Model them. Where's the model, Erika? Quantify them. Where have you quantified them, Erika? Test them. Where have you tested them? Simulate them. Where have you simulated them? Or show they can produce the observed differences. None of this has been done. So when evolutionists want to gaslight me or any other creationist that utilizes this incredible argument in a debate or discussion, they want to gaslight and say, well, Donny's misrepresenting the why. That's gaslighting because they know what a challenge this is, what a discrepancy this is, what a major contradiction this is to the ape-to-man evolutionary story. And so they want to gaslight you into saying, well, maybe it's not that good. Yeah, maybe it has been answered, so I won't use it anymore. And they're like, yes. Okay, now maybe evolutionists can finally start winning debates again. No, this challenge has not been answered. Possibility, maybe this, maybe that, does not equate feasibility. Here's some questions for Erika and other evolutionists. I say Erika because you basically got Gutsick Gibbon and then everybody else under all your other content creators. They're looking to the arguments that Gutsick Gibbon makes. So if we use an argument, they want to do a response video of some kind, they're just, or doing a debate, they're just going to go, oh, how did Erika respond? So you know what, Erika, the entire evolutionist content creator base is really relying on you for this. So if you want them to actually have good arguments and discussions and debates on this issue, then you got to give them some good answers. A lot's relying on you. No pressure, of course. How did these massive architectural changes occur mechanistically in 6 to 7 million years? When did these changes occur within the proposed 6 million year time frame? And again, Dapper Dino attempted a response to the video or the podcast that Matt and I did with Eric Hoven on Creation Today at the beginning of the year on incredible evidence for Adam and Eve from science. And he attempted to engage the Y chromosome part. And did he address any of these questions? Did he answer it, the challenge, in an empirical manner? Nope. Surprise. Why did they occur? For example, what selective pressures drove or tolerated them? How is the entirety of the heterochromatic arm lost in the chimpanzee Y? How did both lineages remain fertile and viable through these drastic changes? Makova's study, the one that we're looking at in Erika's video, gives high quality Y chromosome assemblies, but it does not. Here's what it doesn't do. So Erika relying so much on this paper means the challenge really isn't answered because the Makova study did not answer the challenge. Reconstruct the ancestral ape Y chromosome. I'm going to ask this question and I want to get any answer from an evolutionist. Has the Y chromosome in the hypothetical common ancestor been reconstructed in order that we can start there and start mapping out these changes to see if it's even possible? Identify directionality of changes, gain versus loss. You're not going to be able to say in any serious manner that it's all loss. There's some gain there, okay? Quantify the rates at which these changes occurred. We can do that. I'm going to do that with the chimp and bonobo Y chromosomes and show empirically and mathematically in a sophisticated manner that chimp and bonobo differences can easily accrue in 4,500 years since the flood. No addition of genes necessary. No gain of heterochromatin, so on and so forth, or provide any mechanistic evolutionary timeline. Instead, Makova confirms Y chromosomes are highly variable, low in alignability, and undergo rapid lineage-specific turnover. This strengthens the Hughes 2010 conclusion. What's that? Which is interesting. 2010, 2024, 14 years difference. And it's still a major challenge. It's still a major issue. As a matter of fact, the Y chromosomes now, based on the higher quality Y chromosomal sequencing data, humans and chimps are more different, less than 30% now. If the present day Y chromosomes are this divergent, reconstructing a reliable ancestor is even more difficult. The Y chromosome remains unexplained. Why? Answer these points. Gutsick Gibbon or any other evolutionist, but we know they're all looking to Gutsick Gibbon for the answers. No ancestral sequence. no rate-based model, no fertility preserving pathway, no explanation for new palindrome families, no explanation for human gorilla architectural similarity, no explanation for the 2x size gap. Just giving mechanisms, as they've all done, does not equal an explanation or a model, okay? No explanation for 70 to 86% unalignable sequence. R and Raw, Mr. Phylogeny challenge, and then his challenge is answered for years and doesn't even engage the answer to his challenge. He's not up to date on the genetic data. No explanation grounded in population genetics. There's one for Dr. Zach Hancock. Critics list mechanisms, but never demonstrate that those mechanisms can produce the required changes in the required time. Until they do, the Y chromosome gap remains a fatal problem for human to chimp common ancestry. Here's some questions for you. Now, I got plenty of questions. These are just going to be a few because I want to wrap this up soon. What specific, and here's the thing though, once these questions are answered finally, there's follow-up questions. It's not like they've answered the problem. I mean, they're still at step one. We're sitting here relaxed, we're chill, we're sipping on our coffee, and we're like, Ape-to-Man evolution's been demolished. They're still at step one. So hopefully we can move forward in a positive way. What specific amplicons, palindromes, or gene families were supposedly lost in each lineage? What empirical evidence identifies those differences as deletions rather than independent origins? There's one for Stefan Frello. Where is the ancestral Y chromosome reconstruction? If loss is invoked, which they want to do, you must show the ancestral state. Now, if only they would just say, you know what, we believe, capital B, we have faith that these, we don't have a model, but we have faith that these differences accumulated and there was a common ancestor between humans and chimps. It's not science. We have faith that that occurred. Okay, but no, they actually want to say this is science. They want to print it in a science textbook, but then they don't want to put in the work. Okay, we both are forced to believe certain things and have faith in certain things. Okay, but evolutionists want to pretend that it's all science on the evolutionary side. Without an ancestral reference, loss is just what? Speculation. Speculation ain't going to cut it. Why do humans have entire palindrome families and gene systems absent in Pan? I want that one answered. If the and then model it too. Answer it and then model it. If the differences are only due to loss, where did the human-specific structures, notice that, human-specific structures, with no chimp or bonobo analogs come from? How does a 2x size difference arise purely by loss? The human Y, there's your size of it, telomere to telomere sequencing data. Very good data. I mean, it's an incredible time to be studying this issue. Is nearly double the assembled chimp Y. What mechanism permits this level of asymmetric shrinkage without catastrophic fertility consequences? You got the two chromosomes, you got the data, the sequences, and one chromosome's got these palindrome sequences, another one doesn't. This one's got ampliconic. This one, I'm not saying they're just entirely free of them. I'm just saying there's differences. In the heterochromatin, yeah, it looks like the human and bonobo Y chromosomes lost the entirety of their heterochromatic arm. Anyways, they're asymmetric. And we want to see how this all occurred. Why does the human Y resemble the gorilla Y more than the chimp Y? If humans and chimps share a more recent ancestor than humans and gorillas, why is Pan the outlier? How does asymmetric loss explain this? Here's an important one. Where is the rate-based population genetic model? Show the duplication, deletion, recombination, and mutation rates required to produce. And again, the Y chromosomes, they lack recombination, right? They don't have a chromosomal counterpart. But there is some debate at the tips, or maybe some gene conversion, or even the lack of recombination, which has been invoked by people like Planet Peterson. So all of this needs to be considered. Now, I'm not expecting Planet Peterson to answer this challenge, that's for sure. But we'll see if the big dogs can do it. New human-specific palindromes. Wow. Restructured amplicons. I mean, what more can you ask for? It's like these guys, they want to challenge creationists to answer the question of boundaries within kinds. Show us separate ancestry. It's like, what more do you want? For the evolutionists to even explain this away, they need to explain new human-specific palindromes, restructured amplicons, loss of entire heterochromatic regions in pan, all this massive size golf within 6 to 7 million years without breaking male fertility. Yeah, what does the Bible say? Humans and chimps aren't related. There we go. So I think that's probably enough. I mean, I found it pretty entertaining. Frello here. Frello's answer on the Y chromosome: all story, no science. He just keeps trying. Frello fails. We need a meme. I covered a lot of this. I don't want to get redundant. Okay. It's out there. We've put in the work. So I think we'll start to wrap it up there, roughly at an hour. So, okay. That was good. Guys, it's a great time to be a biblical creationist. One could say that this is the heat problem for the evolutionary community. We recorded with Dr. Andrew Snelling, as I've said, last week, just the most comprehensive video you'll ever see. Currently available for sure, addressing dating methods, addressing isochron dating. You know, we put forth the evidence: radiocarbon, C14 in diamonds, fossils, coal where they shouldn't be. Critics come up with counters. Oh, well, contamination, like Lawrence G. Collins in his article he sent me, invoke contamination. Oh, John Baumgartner should know this, contamination. We demolished it in that video. We addressed all their best rescue devices. Okay. Dr. Hugh Ross, his rescue devices as well. Helium and zircon crystals. Helium shouldn't be there if the zircon crystals are billions of years old. They bring up rescue devices. We address those in the program. Radio halos. Oh, well, there are other processes other than accelerated decay that can explain radio halos. Oh, really? We address those in the program and then showed that, okay, radio halos require accelerated nuclear decay to form, but yet if there was a heat problem, they would have been obliterated. You see how the evolutionary community is stuck between a rock and a hard place. Oh, but there's a heat problem that falsifies or precludes young Earth creation. Evolutionists are not prepared to invoke accelerated nuclear decay, but the creation model can account for that. What that means is there has to be a solution to the heat problem. And whether we provide a solution or not, it doesn't matter. The so-called heat problem doesn't falsify young Earth creation, or else there wouldn't be radio halos. The radio halos are there. Deal with it. Deal with the data. But I am nearly complete on a really technical article. I've been brainstorming ideas for probably the last 3 to 5 years on this issue. And so I've brought them all together. I've titled the model the Earth Core Model in explaining the heat problem. And I've got the numbers. I utilize ChatGPT, yes, to get the numbers, to get the math. I've confirmed it like 15 to 20 different ways and in 15 to 20 different times. And so I'm excited about this. So it's funny because the solution is not even required because we got the radio halos, but we've got the solution as well with the numbers. It's really going to blow your guys' minds away. I don't want to release it prematurely, so I'm still doing some work on it, and I'm putting it together in a presentation that I can record, maybe even do it live in order that we can take some questions. But expect that we're doing a lot here. We got a lot of research projects behind the scenes, and there's a lot to look forward to. We're going to end the year with a bang. We got a lot of great interviews, discussions, debates, and programs scheduled as well. So, okay, the ball is in the court of the evolutionists. Let's see if they're ready to step up and finally address this challenge. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this program. Share it around. The truth is important, and we want to show the world why you can trust the Bible, why you can trust the Bible's account of origins and the origin of the universe, and why the best that the critics have to offer fails when examined. And so God bless you all. Thank you for tuning in. Stand for Truth is out.